Nithyananda, and welcome to this very important video, putting together even more pieces of the puzzle in the conspiracy against Paramahamsa Nithyananda. They have both had very close personal relationships with the men who were the conspirators behind the attack against Nithyananda. Monster, who is your ex-husband.
His name is Douglas MacKallor. Is when I came to know he is conspiring against Swamiji. He and Vinay both approached me and asked me to put a false allegation against Swamiji, saying that Swamiji had sex with me.
Right after he had approached Mahaprabha for lying about Swamiji, he started to actively pursue this sexual relationship with me.
He knew you were 12 years old.
Yes, of course he knew.
Know the full story of this attack against Swamiji when a fake video was leaked by a group called Sun TV, the now defunct Sun TV, for whom the COO is behind bars. The video that Sun TV played was the video that basically came as the product between the alliance between these three men. And so Douglas and Vinay and Lenin. Now, the way that they morphed this video of the actress Ranjitha and made it look like she was in a compromising position with Swamiji, you literally knew that they had the capacity to do that because they threatened they were going to do the same thing with you. So he tries to force a 12-year-old girl to claim that Swamiji had had sex with her. She refused. They didn't leave it at that, did they? They continued to pursue fake victims, and they finally caught one. We know for a fact she's lying because she's disease-riddled. She's so contagious that her own medical report states if she even just touches her lips, she can pass on herpes. The dates that she claimed Swamiji raped her in this ashram, Swamiji himself wasn't even physically in the ashram. He was traveling.
She initially refused this completely, showing that her allegations against Swamiji are completely false.
Absolutely.
Just changing your story like that does not happen to a real victim, and I can say so for a fact.
Yes, of course.
Showing it all goes to show that in the end, Swamiji is paying for the sacrifice that he ultimately did.
Wow.
And he literally risked his entire sangha, his entire name, fame, money, everything for devotees, for me, for her, and who knows how many people, how many victims who have not come forward yet. They were,
and let's not forget Lenin Karuppan also.
It's a connection with Sun TV, and political because of his family.
Yes.
So that's why they're able to make it in this extent, big, and Doug tried it in a smaller way, scale, proved this is working, and they took it in a bigger scale.
Wow.
Lenin got in trouble for his immoral and hurtful relationships with women inside of the sangha, and at that point he was kicked out of the sangha, and that made him also another disgruntled member.
So that's one thing that these two share in common. Both Vinay and Lenin were kicked out of Nithyananda Sangha for having inappropriate relationships with women.
Fake morphed video came out, which was heavily destructive to the sangha.
Yes.
After that, Swamiji was arrested, I think in April, illegally without a victim. For
No
6
victim,
months,
no evidence, no crime.
For 6 months, so there was no victim there. There was no crime. But Lenin Karuppan had went ahead and filed a false allegation of rape. And for 6 months he was basically desperately searching.
Once again, it's a man older than Swamiji who files the rape charge.
Yeah. But saying that there is a victim, somehow saying that the video is evidence for the rape, which, of course, Ranjitha later comes out and says, no, there's nothing.
The video is not even real.
Yeah. And
even if the video were real, anybody who has seen that video sees that the two actors portraying Swamiji and Ranjitha, it's a consensual act. even if that video, which
Yes.
is not real, was real,
Correct.
that's not a crime.
Yeah. So of course, that itself being evidence was had no basis. Then for 6 months there was no victim. In this period, we can see that at some point Lenin Karuppan had pulled out Aarti from wherever she was and convinced her entirely to write her statement and fake all of the allegations.
Wow.
I believe
against her.
Lenin has had a relationship with Aarti, so he was able to convince her.
Where does that belief come from? It's a hunch, or you've heard?
No,
rumors?
I've seen their email. I've known Aarti before this in
Okay.
the community spiritual community.
And there are some
If I find that email, I'll definitely
Yes.
post it here.
There are some ashramites and civilian affidavits stating that they have seen them having a relationship with each other.
Wow. And we all know she wasn't a faithful wife to her husband.
Not at all.
Because of the medical report that shows she contracted 4 sexually transmitted diseases in a time after she was married, but before she claims these rapes from Swamiji took place. So that shows a lot about her moral character. And I mean, I've even read the statistics online. Someone who's contracted more than 3 STDs, 90% of the time they've engaged in some form of prostitution. So who knows what desperate times called for what desperate measures in her life. I just personally can't understand how any situation could be so desperate as to lie about Swamiji, especially after seeing the good he does in the world. How many starving people he feeds, how many sick people he heals, how many poor students he educates for free.
And how much sacrifice he goes
Yes.
for just a few devotees.
Yes.
And Aarti Rao Premeshwari Mai was holding the space. He was giving her the space as a mother.
I understand the name Mayi. I didn't know her spiritual
I
name
used
until
to
today.
look at her so up and high, just because how Swamiji had given that space of my mother.
Mayi. I mean, Ma Nithyananda Mayi, who was Ranjitha, and Ma Sneha Mayi, all the Mayis in the Sangha. We literally treat them as if they are the mother of Swamiji.
Yes, Dayamaya. I used to
So
call her Mummy.
Dayamaya.
So
And Swamiji has actually described to us anyone to whom he gives the spiritual name Mayi, he relates with as his own mother. So imagine the sickness and the perversion of somebody to make a claim that someone who treats you as a mother, whom you should be seen as a son, has raped you. That's literally the most heinous thing I can possibly imagine. Maybe the only thing worse than that would be having your husband try to coerce you to say that you had sex with someone whom you see as a mother figure, which you've mentioned is the way that you relate with Swamiji. So I think it's basically clear now that the media attack against Swamiji was a deliberate, planned, and well-executed conspiracy.
so many years they've planned that, they've looked and looked, find the people, and after so much they spent, they literally didn't have anybody come as a victim or to do false allegation.
And in fact, even to this day, the blog site that your ex-husband runs, I looked at it just yesterday because as all of this was coming out over these last few weeks, I remembered seeing something when I first started my own YouTube channel. One of my viewers sent me a statement saying, why is it that Swamiji has raped so many women? And I said, Swamiji has never raped any women. His testosterone level is lower than that of a 7-year-old boy. He doesn't even look at a woman with lust because his body is capable of producing its own dopamine at will, so he can create whatever sensation he wants without the use of another human being.
Several affidavits, professional doctors have come forward and said that whatever Aarti and any allegation of rape has said against him is not even possible. He's not even capable of
He's
doing
not
that.
capable of that. So I explained to them, Swamiji has not raped anyone and does not rape anyone. Where are you getting this information? They sent me a link to a blog related to Nithyananda cult. And I read the blog post that they had seen, and basically the information they were getting is that at the end of that blog post, There was a statement that says, if you are one of the many women abused by Nithyananda, please come forward to the police. We will support you. Whatever legal needs you have, we'll cover the cost of those legal needs. We have a donation box. Any money donated, we'll use that towards your efforts. Basically trying to bribe any woman poor and desperate enough to make an accusation against Swamiji. This came to my notice for the first time in 2011. I looked yesterday, it's still there. And so that means from 2011 to 2017, in 6 years, they've been literally trying to fish for victims. They only caught one. And the one that they caught, her story is so full of holes that it would be a joke, except for the fact that the media is pulling a spin on it to make it seem believable to those in India who don't know well enough not to believe the vested interest paid media.
Mm-hmm. And taking advantage of the name that Swamiji has, because of course he has worked for it,
Yes.
with the good that he has done internationally,
Yes.
taking advantage of that by slandering it and completely putting it in a bad light. Who knows the kind of blackmail, extortion, and mess that goes on behind those paid media.
Yes. Well, I know we get a brief insight into it in a recent interview I was blessed to have from Lenin Ananda Mayi Swami. She shared with me that when she phoned Sun TV and requested that they air her side of the story, because for journalistic credibility, both sides of every story should be told. And she contacted them and said, the video that you've shown is not real. That's not actually me. Please let me make a statement. You should show both sides of the story. She was told point blank, we know the video is fake. We published it deliberately because we want to push Nithyananda out of Tamil Nadu. Then they actually offered that if she pretends that Swamiji had brainwashed her and convinced her to do what was shown in the video, which didn't actually happen, they would pay her. And she refused to do that. When she refused the money, they tried to bribe her with political power. They offered her a seat in one of the local governments. She refused that also. When she refused that seat, she received a phone call suggesting in no uncertain terms that she should leave the country or else risk her personal safety. And that's when she went to stay for some time in the USA. So what corruption goes on behind the scenes of the paid media, I think, is very abundantly clear for those who listen to her end of this story. It's one big, jumbled, tangled mess of instability and immorality and vengeance, violence.
The thing is that it is exactly this that the avatar comes down. It is exactly for this amount of vengeance, pain, sexual abuse, and completely exploiting the vulnerable state of humanity, the vulnerable state of a child, from a child to all sorts of different people. All of this negativity that the avatar comes down, that he has to go through, and in the end have to prevail just to show humanity that he is the avatar.
Right. He's like a lightning rod for all the toxicity out there.
Yeah. So I hope that the truth finally prevails for in effort with these videos, and of course ongoing persecution, ongoing war that's going on in court and outside of it. I hope that the truth finally prevails for the ultimate enrichment of humanity itself.
So whatever is happening, based on every experience I've had with Swamiji, from the injury that he cured miraculously, I had arthritis in my left knee, he cured it overnight. He's done so many miracles, I can't even name them all in one video. Based on all of that experience, it strikes me that this has to be a Leela. He has to be creating some kind of a divine play. It's Sadashiva coming down to the planet, and by putting himself in a position where he is victimized by the paid media, and he is set up in such a heinous crime, he'll put an end to all of these kinds of dirty dealings once and for
Nobody
all.
could even stand it, man. If it's
Nobody
not
could stand
because
this.
of his incarnation, that's why he could
Yes.
stand it. Nobody.
Nobody else could have lived through what
Come
he's been
out,
put
yes.
through. And nobody else could have empowered two brave souls such as yourselves to live through what you've lived through and still be radiating after all of this. So thank you again so much for sharing your stories. And we'll post the images of these emails at the end of this video, so keep watching for that physical proof. And also please visit the website www.nithyanandatruth.org, like the Facebook page called Nithyananda Truth, and start sharing these facts. Anybody who you know who has ever questioned Nithyananda, claiming, didn't you see the sex tape, or didn't you hear about the rape victim, or don't you know about the contract? If you know anybody who has been victimized by the lies told, instigated by these three heinous individuals, and propagated by the paid media in India, share with them what you've learned today, because it is time the truth prevails, and it's time that those who created this fake story are held accountable for their actions. It's now time for them to be on trial, if not by media, at least by social media. So, thank you so much. Nithyananda.